Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about enlightenment once again. And in particular, I would love it if you can remember the title of this video and apply it to your own life and to your own spiritual process. And you don't even need to listen to the rest of this video. I'm going to give a couple of examples of how this mistake can happen. But really, I just want you to remember and keep it in the back of your mind that today's enlightenment can become tomorrow's mistake. So, let me jump straight into a couple of examples about how this can happen, and hopefully, if you remember the title of this video, you can apply it to your own life and save a lot of heartache and simply time and energy. So the first example I wanted to give about how an enlightenment can become a mistake is very obvious, I think, to most of you listening, but it's actually very common in the world, and that is when people have a religious experience. You know, me myself, I've had quite a few Christian experiences that are very heart-centered, that have white light associated with them. They were beautiful, I've even cried, but luckily I sort of respect, I very much love and adore Buddhism and Hinduism. But many Christians, they have a beautiful experience associated with Christ, and they then make the mistake of saying all the other religions are wrong. They devalue all other people's spiritual experiences, and they claim that their way is the only way. So that's a very easy example for you to see, I hope, that a genuine feeling of love and light from the heart, it can become a mistake if we insist to package that enlightenment in a certain way. But actually, when Christians insist that all other religions are wrong, that's a mistake, I would say. Now, that's the first obvious example. One that I think is very applicable, I hope, to you, if you're a passionate person, is the next one. If you have some sort of an enlightenment experience, a lot of times there's fire associated with this, and you want to pursue your dreams. Maybe there's something within you that you've wanted to do for a long time, and maybe you've taken a psychedelic and all that passion comes roaring to the surface and you really want to pursue something. For me, one of those things was creating these YouTube videos. Maybe for you it's something very specific. Let's just say painting with a paintbrush. If that passion comes roaring up, that's fantastic. It's a genuine enlightenment experience. It's aligned with love. It's aligned with light. But this can become a mistake because the ego, it likes to attach its hopes and dreams to your passion for painting. For instance, the ego might want to make money out of the painting, or it might want to seek fame from painting. The ego will want to become the most famous painter of all time and become a millionaire from the painting. Whereas in reality, a process that is quite common in passionate people is you might pursue your painting with a full burning heart, and after a couple of years or 10 years, you may find that you've expressed whatever it was that you wanted to express. And at that point, it can become healthy to release that particular dream, to allow the fire within you to burn for another passion, to take on the next excitement of life. Maybe you're a painter for the rest of your life. That's fantastic too. The point is just, we might have a burning desire for something, to pursue a dream, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have to grasp onto that dream and suffocate it and stop all the other beauty in life happening. So I hope that example makes sense to you. And now I've got just 3 more. This third one is the most nuanced. I hope you can understand it. I'm going to do my best to explain it well. And it's a bit of a dichotomy almost. You could take a psychedelic and have a very healing experience that you want to have more forgiveness and compassion in your heart for the people around you that are not perfect. Maybe your family are not perfect, but you want to forgive them more deeply. And that's a very genuine, heart-centered enlightenment to have. It's beautiful. But we shouldn't grasp onto that idea of forgiveness so much that we have people treading over us and disrespecting us. On the other hand, you might feel that people in your life are disrespecting you and that you want to set boundaries. You want to set healthy boundaries because that makes for more healthy relationships. But we don't want to set too many boundaries that our relationships in our lives become, too strict. We want to have some forgiveness and compassion in our lives, and we want to accept people's faults. No one is perfect. But either way, the point is, you might want to set boundaries or you might want to become more forgiving, but we shouldn't grasp onto either one of those ideas too much. There's a lesson and a value in it. Both those lessons and values are aligned with the heart, but enlightenment very often, it explores dualities. There is a point in the middle that balances. That is sort of the true grounding point, not an extreme to the left or the right. And I use this example of forgiveness or setting boundaries, but really it can be applied to almost any duality that you can think of, and maybe you can explore that in your own life. That was the nuanced example. Now I'm coming to one that is more common for people that use psychedelics. And it's almost a funny example because I'm sure you have seen this in other people. But it can happen to everyone. It happens in subtle and small ways, perhaps. This is the mistake or the fallacy of becoming a light worker ego. So if you have an experience on a psychedelic where love is pouring out of your heart and you feel like you want to bring love and light into the world, perhaps you want to share your insights on the internet, perhaps you want to share them with your friends and your family, perhaps you just want to love everyone you see more deeply. You want to become a light worker, as many spiritual people would say. That is a fantastic insight to have. It's a fantastic heart-centered enlightenment, even, we could say. But this can very easily become an ego trap. Again, the ego might want to become famous. You want to become some messiah that's bringing light onto the world, and you sort of expect and want praise from other people, or you want to be special, or you feel like you're above people that are not light workers. It's a very common thing to see, and in the most extreme case, people can develop a messiah complex. And people can very often not accept the basic responsibilities of life. So if you are a light worker, maybe there is a genuine calling within you to do something in particular. Like, let's be extreme, maybe you want to move to a third world country and start a monastery there. That could happen and that could be genuine. But also, for a very large amount of people that are light workers, that are spreading love and light in the world, they are normal people with normal jobs. Just because we've accessed love and light doesn't mean that all of a sudden we no longer have to work or just have basic social responsibilities of adding value to the world through a job. We're still normal people, we're still chopping wood, we are still feeding the fire under in our kitchen to cook our dinner, we are still pulling out the weeds of our garden. Being a light worker, in that sort of poetic way is fantastic, but we're still normal people and we should bring our light down to a humble level, not a level where we're superior and expect glory and fame and money and so forth, because those things are much more ego-driven rather than heart-driven. I hope that makes sense. And then the last example, which I left for last because most people, I think, would see what I'm saying as being utterly obvious, and some people would disagree with me very strongly. But let's see if I can say this in a balanced way. And that's the topic of veganism. I think This is actually a very important theme in spirituality because it touches on the topic of empathy. And you might, again, be having a very deep meditation, maybe on a psychedelic, maybe not, but you can really feel in your heart that you care for the well-being of animals. You don't want them to suffer in atrocious farming conditions. You want to minimize suffering in the world. That is a fantastic heart-opened experience. I would call that an enlightenment experience if you genuinely want to minimize suffering in other beings, other animals. But the ego, so often it develops this superiority mindset and it can become too hardcore in its beliefs. For instance, is there really anything wrong with a farmer that has cows just living around with him? He's not factory farming, there's just a cow living there on the farm and the cow might produce excess milk. Is it really wrong for that farmer to drink the milk? I would say it's perfectly ethical and perfectly great. But a hardcore vegan would reject even that. So it's important to not denounce the original enlightenment that someone might have had of empathy, of wanting the best for animals. That's fantastic, but we don't want to develop this ego and veganism. We don't want to have this ism attached to that genuine heart-centered realization. I hope all of that makes sense. Maybe it was a bit of a ramble. Really, what's important, like I said at the start, is just remember the title of this video. That today's enlightenment can become tomorrow's mistake through all sorts of tricky, illusionary ways that the mind plays on us. And if you can remember that, perhaps a time in your life will come where you can apply it, and that could save you literally years and years of walking down the wrong track, and you can get more in contact with this, the true empty enlightenment. Enlightenment that is full of substance, but ultimately there's nothing to grasp. And the more we grasp and build identities around the enlightenment, the more we actually shut it back off. If you can experience enlightenment, fully absorb the lessons that it gives you, fully live it, fully be animated by the light, but also, when the time is right, release that enlightenment experience, because that makes way for the next enlightenment and even deeper enlightenment until you become light itself.